Good morning. Today I am hosting the Center for Ideas I See Voices. My name is Gabrielle Tola. I go by she, her pronouns. And today I have the pleasure of introducing Gisela Rosa, she, they pronouns. She is an alumna of the Liberation Program of the Brotherhood Sister Sol and now Liberation Program Alumni Facilitator. As a member of LP, a youth-led organizing program, Gisela has collaborated on campaigns, actions, and events aimed at increasing student access and voice on various social justice efforts. Most recently, Gisela, an experienced and dedicated youth organizer and civic participant, facilitated the program Power, 2 Rs. And in this program, she created workshops that touched on important topics, including immigration rights, gender justice, racial justice, education justice, and criminal justice. She also co-created with LP and campaign to increase student support, staff, guidance counselors, therapists, college advisors, and more in Harlem public schools and end the school to prison pipeline. He said as a junior at Ithaca College, where she is currently working towards her Bachelor of Arts in Sociology with a double minor in Education Studies and Legal Studies. Gisela is also the president of Poder, the Latinx Student Association, the only Hispanic Latinx club on campus. Gisela has also served as camp counselor at CUMEP in the Southside Community Center of Ithaca, New York, where she worked alongside children between the ages of 3 to 13, teaching them about real life issues. March 2020, she was able to travel to London through her Black Feminist Alchemy class, where she was part of the series and tours and events that focused on the Black experiences, particularly Black women experience in London, both past and present. They've also had the chance to be the opening remarks at Teachers College of Columbia University for reinvigorating civics education in New York. She has also had the chance to be on New York One, where she shared her experience of what it's like to be a member at the Brotherhood Sister Sol and now alumni. Isel is a writer, social media influencer, activist, organizer, and leader, and believes that, as Fannie Lou Harmer, nobody's free until everybody's free, and knows that civic participation, organizing, policy, and more will help us get there. With all that and the accomplishments out of the way, I present y'all Gisela Rosa.
I'm really excited to do this interview. I've done like you just read that, and I just every time I think about it, I'm doing a whole bunch of like I always think about my high school experience and like what that was like and how I've still been involved since high school and like that hasn't changed. So I'm really excited to be a part of this interview, and I'm so grateful that y'all like picked me to highlight me because I'm just like I just don't be like talking. I don't know. I feel like I talk but I don't find myself to be like very much out there. So when people like be like, oh, like you do this, and I'm like, how did you know that? So I'm
We
really
see you. We see you. I remember one of the reasons we like chose you was because like reflecting on like the experience that we've had. I remember honoring blackness that I see. Not something that you put down, but something I'll plug in because I will be asking you like what you've been involved in over the years, because now it's been years. Isn't that crazy? At Ithaca College. Doesn't feel like it because of the whole pandemic thing, but yeah, lots to say here, lots to be proud of. I'm proud of you. So obviously an honor to have you. And so I'll go ahead and get started with these questions if there's anything else that you'd like to forward us with. Okay, perfect. So what is your definition of a student activist?
all right. So I think a student activist, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be on a college campus. I think it can be like in a middle school, elementary school, like even high school. I think mostly high school, but I think that a student activist is someone who's willing to they want to make social change. And you don't have to be on the front lines of like, you know, protests or marches. Like you don't have to be one of those people. Like there is a lot of activists that are behind closed doors. So you can necessarily be somebody who's in the background, you know, like in meetings with faculty or staff or meetings with other students on campuses to hear like what they have to say about whatever your social issue or whatever social change you want to create. Um, and I think mostly like now that I'm seeing it from like the college perspective, I think like the definition changes and like there's always the difference between like activism and organizing. Um, like activism and organizing are two very different things. Just because you're an activist doesn't necessarily mean you're an organizer. Um, but I think like overall student activist is someone who's willing to like just create social change in like whatever way they're most comfortable in.
I agree with that. What is your history with activism and why did you get involved with this specific movements that you're in?
So this goes back all the way to middle school. In middle school, in order for me to like graduate, like middle school, I had to do a social studies project, and we all had to do one. And our topic like for that year was the civil rights movement. And I remember I had John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, and Dwight D. Eisenhower. Those are those were my presidents that I had to like basically do the project on. And then from then on, like I just sparked an interest in like the lives of Black people and like what that looks like and what it has looked like and the history behind that. And then from then on, like I went on to high school and I joined a club like my first year called Class of Consciousness, and it was basically to talk about social issues and what's going on in the world and like how we can incorporate that in like schools. And then my sophomore year was officially when I joined the Brotherhood Sister Soul. I did summer liberation school August 2016. And then ever since like after that, I was a part of the liberation program in which like we attended marches, protests, campaign. We worked alongside campaigns of like closed Rikers. And like now they work. I was a senior when they like officially came out with the LP campaign, which is to have an increase in student support staff. But like I remember being there, like brainstorming like what that looks like and what we want in our schools and how we can end school to prison pipeline. So and then like getting into college, like it's around like the same thing. I think being in college, it was also like the whole like even when you said honoring Blackness that I see, like I remember that and like that whole big thing of like letting students of color know, specifically Black students and brown students, that they're like we're here, like we are visible, we have each other. Um, and then I remember also doing um, her her story is not history about like awareness to bring sexual assault. And then I don't like I feel like it's been so long, but it hasn't even been that long.
Yeah.
But I really don't remember after that. And then like my first year I became president for the like I also remember that. Um I can't even think of anything else. Like I don't remember. Like I'm going blank.
That's okay. Those
That's
are like the main three things though. Yeah, I feel like our lived experience is really, when you're brown, like you don't really read your way into it. You kind of have to live and like find out the hard way about everything that you have to organize and speak on. Because I really like what you said about the difference about activism and organizing. I feel that activism has become like a very big thing. Like being an activist has become a very big thing that people want to be now without necessarily taking the action. So I like the intention that you put behind the aspect of organizing specifically. And so, kind of touching into our lived experiences, how has your identity created like your experience and like your intentions as an activist?
I definitely so as someone okay, so growing up I knew that I wasn't white. Like it was just something that I knew. Like when you're in like elementary school and like you're shitting in bubbles or like marking boxes. I
Yeah.
just knew I wasn't white. Like there's just no way. So I would always put Black. And then when I officially joined the Brotherhood Sister Soul, that's when I was like, okay, like they're teaching me stuff. And then that's when I like officially like had like the history on the slave the Atlantic slave trade that happened in the
Mhm.
Caribbean. And then I was like, okay, so this is starting to make sense to me. Like I know I'm not crazy. And then
Yeah.
I found out that the first stop on the like island was literally Dominican Republic. Like that was the first stop. So I was like, okay, like this is really, really making sense. And that's
Yeah.
when I was like, okay, so I'm a Black person, I'm a Black woman. So I think that identifying myself as a Black woman or Afro Latina plays a big part in like my identity and like why I do what I do. Um, and so like always like Black Lives Matter and like ending like police brutality and school to prison pipeline and like all those things plays a huge part of my identity because it's
Mhm.
who I am. And like I think I always relate back to my brother because my brother's a lot darker than I am. So I always think about like what happens if he were to ever get stopped in his car, like what happens, like things like that. But I don't think I have to put myself in that position to say like, oh, this happened to somebody in my family, so I have to care. I think because we should just care. These are like basic human rights
Mhm.
that people are asking for. We're not asking for like people are literally asking for crumbs, and it's always like, but you can't have this. So it's like that's the stuff that like I always think about. So I think like that plays a huge part of my identity. And then I identify myself as queer because like I don't really want to label myself. So even being
Mm-hmm.
Afro-Latina who's queer, like that's also a big thing in the lives of LGBTQ folks, specifically black trans women. Um, and like and even like undocumented folks and how they're treated and how people don't talk about undocumented folks enough. And like knowing that my mom is an immigrant, like I come from immigrant parents, so all of this plays a huge part of my identity. But I feel like even if I wasn't to experience it, I would still care. Like even if it wasn't my identity, I think as a human being and just somebody who like cares, and people, I feel like people should just care. Like I don't know why is it so hard for people to sit here and just be like, oh, like I care about this, you know? It's so
Mm-hmm.
hard to like have to like sit here and tell somebody like I've been through this, this, and this, and this, for you to actually like have some compassion or understand like what this means to me and how important it is to me and my identity.
That all really resonates. I feel I also had that same experience in elementary school. For me, I know you're from New York. I'm from Miami, and we're like a majority minority group where it's like most of us are either white Latino or brown. And I remember processing that like a difference, a sense of indigeneity that wasn't to belonging to America, because I also wasn't raised here. Like I was born here, but I wasn't raised here. And I never could understand why to some people, how some people could live in such like, like distance from like the real world because of their privileges. And that was always very shocking to me, because I felt that like as a mixed person, like I always didn't understand. Like I felt like I lived in like the in-betweens of lots of different identities, also as like a queer woman. And it was very strange to me that like it took people so much to build like basic empathy. And so it's crazy. That really that really resonates.
I think for me it's just crazier because I went to school. I think growing up in New York City, like well, depending on like where you live, I went to predominantly black and brown school, like literally all my life, literally up until high school. And the only people that were white were our teachers. Um,
Yeah.
so it's always that like, so why, and then like getting into college, that was a huge like cultural shift for me because it was like, where is everybody who looks like me? Like this is us.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing.
No, I can imagine. It was literally the same for me. But I did feel that I got like pretty immersed into the POC community upon coming, because I made like older friends. I don't know if it was like the same for you. And that was very grounded for me, because there were definitely times in my freshman year where I was like, I'm transferring. It's too
Yes,
overwhelming.
yes.
Overwhelming.
Literally, I remember my second day of class, my freshman year, I wanted to, like, I was crying. I was like, there's no way, like, I chose to come here. And then I think being a part of the POC community and like navigating through older folks, it was just so much easier to just be like, okay, because then I felt like I see like all the other white kids, but it's just like, it feels like it's just us and the POC. Like, that's just how it felt. It was
Yeah.
like, we're just everywhere too. Like, I see ya, I see ya.
Yeah. I feel like I like to surround myself in like black and brown spaces a lot more, just to like feel some sense of familiarity and community, when I'm in Ithaca. And I definitely think that like the seniors when I was a freshman like were definitely like a grounding space for me, because you feel so alienated. For me personally, I know I don't have long hair now. I used to have long hair like most of my life. I went to orientation. It was such a mission to get there, because I also like had a flight canceled. I had to like go out of my way to like go up to Ithaca. I get there and it's only like my orientation was only like white students and white faculty. And I was like, I fucked up. I fucked up. And I cut all my hair off, but like, but it was kind of similar to now. But yeah, that was definitely such a ground shaking experience. I can imagine how that like felt for you also, like being from New York.
It was
So
scary.
we're, oh, go ahead.
No, it's just scary because it's just like, why? Like, there's like, I just can't believe it. Like, there's just, I think especially like going to school predominantly black and brown kids, you're like, okay, so maybe there's gonna be more of us than I imagined. And then you walk into a classroom and it's literally like you and somebody else.
Yeah, or only you. And
Yeah,
that's
it's the
scary.
most uncomfortable thing ever because it's like, okay, like, and then I think one of the most uncomfortable things is like when they start talking about black and brown issues and they always want you to speak for them. Like they
Yeah,
want you to be like the spokesperson. And it's like, I can't speak for all black and brown people. Like I can only speak from my experience and from what I've
exactly.
seen. I can't speak for everybody.
because it's reducing it to like a monolith, being that brown in itself is a monolith, because what does it really encompass of? Nobody ever really knows. Some people like encompass like white Latinos, and that doesn't account for my experience. Like I cannot like resonate even, and it's crazy because I started becoming like more alienated to my hometown when I left to college and like met like other like Dominicans and like black and brown students, even though like this is a majority minority area. But that's crazy. Yeah, it is very alienating. And so I want to know, what are some projects that you were and are involved in? I know that like we like touch base on what you're involved in now, but if there's anything that like you missed, if it came back to your mind, if not, like you can just go ahead.
I think like right now, what I could really think of is so as an alumni facilitator, like the students right now we're working they're working on trying to like fix their campaign and trying to embed it in like what changes can they make to continue with the campaign. But as of right now, they're mostly like looking into like mayor candidates and like city council candidates to see like,
Oh,
yeah, they're having like interviews with them. Like today they have one with city council to see like who do they feel fits best for like what they're standing for. And like that's what happened with the mayor like candidates and the question that they were asking. But that's like one of the projects that I'm working on. That's literally all I can think of. And then like also for the summertime, like I'm working at the same place. So we're working towards what the summer is gonna look like and what workshops we'll be facilitating. And I think like one project that I've been like thinking about and like thinking about for some time now, like for myself, is just I want to do this thing very similar to like the Black Panther Party and like their free breakfast program. I want to do one with clothes, but instead of it being like,
mm,
oh, like it can be like a thrift shop kind of thing, but it doesn't have to be like you wouldn't buy anything. Like we could send out boxes people in need who need like clothes, or you can come in and exchange clothes for whatever you need. So that's something that I've like been thinking about for quite some time now. And a lot of my friends are like, oh, we should do it, we should do it, we should like just do it. But I think like the biggest thing for me is trying to find the funds to like be able to like move forward with this. Or if not, if we do find the funds, it's always like, oh, how has this been effective? Like these reports of like how has it been effective? And it's like there's no need for all of that. Like I think people just, especially like being in the middle of a pandemic and like folks struggling with money, like at a time like this, I think there are people who are like kind of scared to say like, oh, I need this or I need that. And um mutual aid is also like a big thing that I like super duper believe in. um and so that's something that I just want to do. Like I just think it'd be like really a cool experience, but also to like let people know that we're here, like we have each other, like we don't really need anybody else. The government can
yeah.
only do so much, and they just all the time give us crumbs or like little things, and it's just like we need more. um so yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely been thinking a lot about how mutual aid is really the main navigator of how we gotta rebuild our society. Thinking about like socialist acts that like from past movements like the Black Panther Party or the Young Lords Party, where we want to like remodel not everything, because obviously like there were flaws, but especially like recentering back into our communities, which I have seen a lot of. So I think that's a beautiful idea to have a clothing drive. Sounds really Sounds really good. I'd like that. I'd be excited to participate in it if I was up in New York, but I'm not.
I think we should do it. Like I think it'd be like really fun. And I think it sucks because a lot of people have to rely on the government, and the government doesn't really do
Mhm.
anything. Because to me it's my like there's so many things that I hate capitalism. Like I hate capitalism. Like I'm gonna say that. Like I truly do. And I think that one of the like what one of the worst things that just comes to me is like these people that are work for the government or like are in the House of Representatives or senators, they literally sit here and sit all together and debate human rights for
Yeah,
all of us while they have a salary. Like
that's
they don't,
sickening.
yeah, and it's like, so you're gonna sit here and make decisions for me while you have a salary. Like that just makes no sense to me. And it's just like that's why I want people to understand like there's more, like mutual aid is real and it exists, and it's like since the beginning of time, like people have always had their each other's backs, especially when it comes to Black and brown communities. Like no one got our back like we do, and it's something that I still see and I saw growing up a lot. And it's something that's like real, and like people are just always like, oh, we're not there yet, but I feel like if we were able to do like a whole big shift, like we'd be able to get where we want to be, and like stop relying on these systems who of oppression. Like these systems have done nothing for us for years. So why continue them? Like they've done nothing. Like we've never really seen this big change, so why continue them?
Absolutely. And I do think it's coming also astrologically and from what I've seen in different perspectives. Like I do see like a lot of like rises in mutual aid, and we've always been about it, sending our shoes over and sending our shoes over to our islands and whatnot. Like it's always been a part of us and our culture, and that return to it is really beautiful. And yeah, it's sickening to me. You're not gonna tell me whether I get to eat or not in your Telfar bag. That's dumb. It's dumb.
It just doesn't make sense to me. Like it just I think the one thing that really like just doesn't make sense to me is like the whole stimulus check. Like y'all
Yeah.
think $1,400 was enough? Like we're in the middle of a pandemic. Like people have not worked for months, like maybe even a year, and y'all are out here thinking that this is like you can just pay your bills, you can pay rent with that, and that's pretty much it. You can't proceed and do anything more. So that is just like I just don't get it. I every day I just wake up and I be like, I hate capitalism because y'all care more about property and money and all these massive corporations than I do about people.
I can't process it in my head. It's sick.
It just doesn't make like it really does not make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. Who are people that you hope to reach with your activism?
I think the people that for me, sometimes I really like wish that I can reach older people and that they would understand why we do what we do and why it matters to us, or like them to try to see it from our perspective. But I feel like that it's a lot harder because they've grown up with like their own beliefs and like all these things that these are their own experiences, and they don't understand like how different times have changed. Like things have changed drastically. Like even when it comes to like my brother, like I say my brother's only 8 years older than me, but like a lot of our views are very, very different. Which is so strange because it's like I just don't like that. I don't understand because we grew up in the same place. We grew up very similarly. So like I don't understand how you wouldn't understand like the way I see things. But I think mostly I really want to reach younger people. I think that they are the ones that are going everything that we put in, like all the work that we're doing now, they're going to be the ones to like receive that. And I think that that's something I've always said, even at my job. Like I tell them all the time, like I'm okay with putting in the work and like, blood, sweat, and tears for like all these things, as long as y'all don't have to go through this again. Like y'all don't have to experience these things. And I think it's mostly for young people, like young people. And I say young people, like I'm not like 20 years old. I feel like, and like when I mean like I mean like middle school kids and elementary school kids and even like high school kids, like they are the ones who like you got it, like because at some point in my life, like I'm gonna be like I can't do it anymore, and I hope I don't ever reach there, but I think they're the ones who I really like want to touch the most. Like even my little cousin, she's always like, you always want to ruin everything for everybody, and it's like trying to help you, like when I saw that about like gender and like what that like how gender is a social construct and that's not really real, or like how much I really don't like gender reveals because I think that they're really
Yeah.
dumb,
Yeah.
because people are born intersex, like there's just so much that comes with gender. And she's like, why do you always want to ruin gender reveals for everybody? Just let them be. And it's just like you learn like gender is a social construct. So I
Yeah.
think it's mostly young people that I really, really want to reach. Like they're maybe even I hope one day my mom and my family, like I hope that
Yeah.
they understand why
Mm-hmm.
and like why it means so much to me. And it's like a lot of that it comes from like their experiences and like them growing up in the Dominican Republic and like all the things that they went through. But it's also like all of that you like have had there, you brought it with you here. And even though you don't think that the Dominican Republic has their own issues, they do. They have a lot of those. They have a lot of anti-blackness. They have a lot of like stuff, but they don't see it that way. They never like really think like, oh, this is a problem. So I hope that one day they're like, oh, like this is really bad. Like this is actually like everywhere. Like not everywhere is bad, but like what you're fighting for and what you believe in, like and why you do what you do is so important. Um, and I just hope that one day they come to that realization. Like I'm literally asking for basic human rights. I'm not asking for any more. I'm not asking for anything less. Like I don't know why we sit here every day questioning someone's worth or someone's value, or like it's just like I really every day I just wonder like why. Like I don't understand how did, like I really be like, how did we get here? Like how did we get here? How
Yeah,
did, like, it's so much.
greed. Gotta be greed. It's insane to me because we really did like, well, not we, but like
No, we
let's start there. Not we, but people, the government, the people in power really did commodify everything and distance ourselves so far from our original beliefs. I mean, like it's crazy that we can actually like be so deeply rooted in individualism. I mean, I also feel like aside from that being like a general like philosophical thing, also like as an American thing, American individualism is literally going to be the death of this country. But I digress. But it's crazy that like you really do have to be arguing for basic human rights. Like we don't all need that. And then personally for me, what I see a lot here in my hometown is like the argument of like human rights as socialism, and people have like their traumas of socialism coming from South American, Caribbean countries, but it's still so insane to me. And so I've never had someone like say in an interview like older people, and I really want to take a like some time to reson to like sit down and like reflect on that, because like older people really are the ones that like carry the trauma and are the most stubborn to work against it. Like children and the youth, I feel a lot of children are born with empathy. It's over time that it's like broken and battered down. Like I had to live through this, and now y'all gotta like, what's that thing that they always say? It's like, oh, like I got spanked, like my children are gonna get spanked too. Crazy, crazy things
yeah,
to me. Like it's
it's
usually
like
adults that we gotta like beat the constructs into. Like you don't know how
exactly.
deeply rooted you are in this.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. And I'm just like, oh my, like a lot of it, this like all this like trauma stuff that I always think about goes back to like me. I don't believe in prisons. I don't believe in jails. I don't believe none of that. I feel
Yeah.
like they need to be abolished. Um, and the reason I say that, I'm not saying that I sit here and defend like any murderers, any like I don't sit here and defend any of them. But if you like look into most of them have had experiences of childhood trauma. Most of it has been things that has happened to them, which is why they do what they do. And it's
Yeah.
like you don't like sit here and like try to understand like they did this because it happened to them, so they think it's okay. And it's more than just, oh, locking somebody up in a cell and thinking like, oh, they're gonna change, they're gonna come out of there, ready to be back into society. And it's like, no, they're not.
The
The
problem never gets solved.
exact, and it's like they literally sit here like they're mistreated in prisons. Like even right now, I don't know if it's in, I might say Ohio, I don't think it's Ohio. How they've been throwing stuff out the window from like a prison. I don't even know
The
where it is.
protests.
Yeah,
I
since
do feel like it was Ohio. I saw that recently.
yeah, like they've been doing it since COVID began. And it's like, so we're gonna act like just because people are locked up, they don't deserve to be social distancing, like they don't deserve to be cared for in the middle of a pandemic because they're locked up. Like that makes sense to me. So I feel like that also goes with like the death penalty. Like I don't believe in that either. I don't think that we should be like taking people's lives. And when you look at like facilities, and I think it's in Sweden, I always say Sweden, they have like mental health facilities, what their jails and prisons look like. And it's like a
Mm.
time for people to reflect on like what they did in order to put them back into society and be like better people. But when you have people in cells where you treat them like animals and you beat them and you like talk to them a certain way because they've committed a crime, they're gonna come back outside and do the exact same thing that got them there in the first place.
Exactly. It only instigates more violence. Like it doesn't actually solve anything. I couldn't find I couldn't find the, but I do feel like it was Ohio. Now I'm like, now I have to
Yeah,
know. I'll find out afterwards. But yeah, exactly. Like no problems get solved. Also, Swedish like jail cells look like American dorm rooms.
college,
Just putting that out there. So it's
yes.
kind of crazy. Kind
It's
of
like
crazy.
and a lot of it is just like people need to heal from childhood trauma. Like we have like I've learned that most of the things that we do, especially as Black and brown people, are signs of trauma. Like a lot of
Yeah.
it is a lot of signs.
Yeah.
And I think in order for to be better, like we don't want to be our parents. And I think that's something that I love my mom to death, like, you know, but I don't want to be her. Like, I want to be able to like heal from everything that I went through as a child, and like be able to like give my children like, you know, a different form of love. And like, I don't think I'm never gonna be my kids. What are we getting out of that? Like, you're not doing
Nothing.
anything from, and just being able to like actually sit and talk to your child and like what's going on, like, which goes back to like the school to prison pipeline, and how people are always talking about black and brown kids specifically, like most of the time it's black girls, and like they quote unquote act up in the classroom.
And fast.
Yeah, and it's literally like, one, first of all, they're children, like let's really
Right.
just start off with their children.
Let's
And
unpack that.
like they're children, like I don't know what you expect a child to be doing in the classroom, but then it's also like, oh, they've been acting out, I'm gonna kick them out of the class. We kick them out of the class, they're missing time of learning, and then somehow some way they end up being suspended, they don't want to come back to school. But it's like none of you
Yeah.
ever took the time to sit here and be like, okay, so what is going on at home, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
And it's like that whole like the compassion and empathy that people don't have for black and brown kids or black and brown people in general is just like, it just doesn't make sense to me, because I feel like that's literally like human decency to sit here and ask somebody, like, people don't act out and do things for no reason, there's always a reason behind it. So it's like, even as a teacher or like people who are incarcerated, like there's something that led you to being here, something that happened in your life that got you here, and what was that, like, let's unpack that. But you know, like they don't do that at all, and that's why like
Yeah.
kids are suspended from schools and don't ever go back. And then people be like, oh, you know, black and brown kids are always outside and like they don't want to go to school. Well, you kick them out of school, now they don't want to be in school, they don't feel like school is a very safe environment for them, and they don't want to be there. Which is why like my program believes in like the campaign of like having more student support staff. Why is there one guidance counselor to like 500 kids? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Exactly that. Exactly that. There is no reason why, or there is no like excuse. There's reasoning, because like I get it, American individualism, but like there should be no excuse as to why the American systems undervalue social workers so much. Like a lot of our problems are social problems, which I mean, with the amount of like hate that this country has for socialism, it makes sense why we're so fucked. Um, my bad. But like it literally doesn't make sense, because it's, you can see why we're so behind, but people don't recognize that this is a social issue more than it is like an outburst of violence. Because as you had said, like no one acts up even when kids are born bad, it's because they're born into neglected spaces. And what are we going to do to fix that? That's what people don't want to talk about. And I remember, oh my god, me and the school to prison pipeline in middle school, I saw that up front. And it's the whole like uniform coding thing is just very, it's just very predatory on female women on female children. It's insane. I could go on.
No, it literally is. Especially like every time I think about dress code, I think about my high school experience and how I was always told like, you know, you're breaking the. I don't care. I hate to break it to y'all. I am in school. I do not care. I remember I wore it was hot. It was really, really hot. And I wore a strapless shirt. And my teacher one that it was lunchtime, and she was like, oh, he said, like, come over here. And I was like, okay. And she was like, why are you wearing that? Like, you're not going to the beach. And I was like, what am I doing? I was like, I'm literally showing shoulders. Like, I'm confused. And I was like, if my shoulders turn on anybody, like that's a problem. But
That
you
is a problem. I'm a child.
like, I'm confused if you think that. And it also happens, you know, it's crazy. It also happens to me at church.
Mm.
Not really religious, but you know, my family's very Catholic, and my
Yeah.
baby getting baptized. And I was wearing an off the shoulder black dress, and a woman came up to me, don't know this woman, never been to this church in my life. And she goes, oh, like you should pick up your dress. It's a little inappropriate for the priests. And I was there like, I didn't pick up my dress. Like, what do you mean the priest? Like inappropriate? Like I, what? What?
Yeah,
Don't you think that that's a problem? That if I have my shoulders out, like that's gonna like turn it. Like I think that that's the issue. I'm not the issue. My shoulders are not the issue. So
exactly.
I think, and a lot of, I also feel like dress codes is a lot of what is it? It's a lot of sexualization when it comes to like women, especially like black and brown girls, like because it's so like, it's not even interesting. It's just like if it looks different on a white girl, no one is gonna say anything. But because
Exactly.
they sexualize Black and brown girls so much, it's like, oh, it looks inappropriate on you, so I'm gonna tell you that you can't wear that. And it's like, why? I'm confused. Like we're literally wearing the exact same thing, but
Yeah.
because you want to sexualize me and my body, you're gonna tell me that it's inappropriate. So,
Especially for those of us like on the bigger like end, it's always a problem. And we're not the problem. They're the problem.
you're the problem for even looking at me and thinking something of it. Like you are the problem. I am not the problem. And I think that that's the most like uncomfortable thing ever. Like being uncomfortable in your own like in your own body when you're in school because you're like, damn, like I can't even dress like this.
It's criminal.
Somebody gonna tell me something. Why should you be telling me something about my shoulders? Who cares? Like, leave me alone. I'm not bothering anybody. Or I think my favorite one is when they be like, do your parents know you leave the house like this? Yes.
Yeah.
She buys my clothes. Yes, she knows I left the house like this. Yes, she knows. So it's like, I'm not like, I just, I just have so many issues. Like I feel like that's what people be like, oh, you just hate everything I do.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it a problem.
Yeah, and if you
I don't
don't,
want to see this no more.
and if you don't, like, if you don't hate this either, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, are you not seeing what I'm seeing? Like, are we like living in the same world? Like, I have so many questions. And it's like, I get the whole, like, oh, I don't want to be negative and I just, want to live my life. I can live my life and still hate everything. Hate, like, I hate, like, I think capitalism is the root of all evil. Like, let's talk about that. Capitalism is the root of all evil. I think that every day I ask myself,
It is.
like,
It
why?
makes us ignore each other. It distances us from our roots. I feel like capitalism for me was a huge like debilitator in my growth because I was like raised in like Ecuador and Colombia, and I come here and like everything is a commodity. You don't speak to your neighbors, like everything is grind. And I was like isolated, and that affected me for years, and I didn't even recognize that until I went to college because I had the privilege to go to college, but not everybody gets that, and that's how these problems continue to perpetuate.
Nope, I feel that. I really, really, really do. Oh my gosh. And I feel like even with capitalism in itself, I think as Black and brown people, like I know for me, I struggle with money. And I think I struggle with it because I'm afraid to spend it. Because growing up like as low income and poor, like it's very hard to sit here and be like, you don't even know when the money's coming back. So it's like you become so attached to money of like, oh my God, like I don't want to let it go because I don't know if it's gonna come back to me. And I think that's enrooted in like trauma of like how we grew up and like how we were supposed to grow up. Which is also like this idea of like we're not even allowed to live. It's just a survival. Like we're literally out here trying to survive. And I don't want to survive for the rest of my life. Like I want to live.
It's what we deserve.
And I'm like, I don't want to, which is also good. Like what you said about like working. To me, it goes back to like paid sick leave. Like, why do people have like a number of days for paid sick leave? Like, I believe people should have unlimited paid sick leave. I think women should have 18 months of maternity leave. And I think that men should also be participating in paternity leave. Like, women are not the only ones who have children, you know? So a lot of that is just like, and I also find working 9 to 5 illegal. I should not be working 40 hours a week. I don't know what I thought this was. Like, well, how am I supposed to try to be social during that time? And it just goes back to like this random number that somebody just randomly chose in the 70s and said, let's all work 40 hours. And everyone has just been okay with working 40 hours. And I'm not. I do not want to sit here and burn out and think that like, okay, I'm going to burn out for a company that doesn't care about me just because I have to make money to survive. I'm not trying to survive. I want to live. Like, I want to live my life in the best way that I can because we're only here for some time. We're not here forever. So, and I also think that that's just like the way like Black and brown people, like that's literally like everything just goes back to like trauma and like history of like, oh, work, no breaks because you feel like you have to work to get everything that you want. And it's like, I'm going to take a break. I don't know about y'all, but my mental is, I be going, like I'm a very anxious person. And when I'm under stress, like I become severely depressed. So it's like, I can't sit here and like act like I'm not going to take care of myself. I think taking care of yourself is so important, which goes back to like capitalism. Like people don't talk about how school is another form of capitalism. We're just not getting money from it. We're getting a grade. So it's like, do y'all see why I say that capitalism is rooted off? Because look where we at. So yeah, I've like thought about it for so long, and I was like, yo, school is actually like another form of capitalism. We're literally like trying to burn out, work, we're turning in assignments to get a grade, not
To get
even
a
to.
paper at the end that may or may not even get us a job.
So it's like working. You work to get a salary. It's a probably get promoted to get more money, and it's just like here we are, same thing through school. Like it just doesn't change.
Absolutely. We that was something. That was something. I guess I'll move on and ask, how would you recommend college students get involved with activism in general?
I think that college students should definitely get involved. I think find something that it like that you find yourself to be very passionate or like something that you want to see change. And I say that because most of the time it's like black and brown students. Most first of all, let's really talk about how most of the time people who like partake in like activism or any form of organizing are black and brown women. Like they are the front lines all the time. So I think that finding something that you feel you are very passionate about, something that you want to see change, and just being like, okay, like let me do some research on this. Like where can I get myself involved? What can I do from here? How can I make this change? Who can I talk to? And then there's like a lot of like, you know, a lot of organizations that, and that's just like my whole other thing, like organizations and like there's like nonprofits and like grassroots organizations, and then like nonprofits suck because capitalism, like poor people have to
Yeah.
exist for nonprofits to exist. um so like I think just finding something that you want to see change, like anything that you want to see change, because there's literally like I promise you there has to be an organization or a program or a nonprofit for any single little thing in the world. Like you just have to look for it. And or like there's people you just sometimes even talking to people and you're just like, oh shit, like me and you both believe in this, like why don't we do something about this? Why don't we want to create change? And I think for college students, specifically students of color on college campuses, there's a lot of things that you can like depict. There's a lot of issues there that you just have to find the one that you're just like, okay, so how are we gonna fix this? How are we gonna make this better for us? How, not even doesn't necessarily have to be for us, but how are we gonna make this better for the incoming class who has students of color as well, if we don't want them to experience what we experience?
Absolutely. How would you recommend that people who don't identify with your activism, so on the topic of white allies, for instance, or men, how would you recommend that they get involved?
Let's start with men because I think men specifically, and we gonna talk about black and brown men first.
Of course.
I think they don't acknowledge their privilege as men. And I think that they always be like, oh, how do I have privilege even though I'm a black man? And it's like, you're a man. Like that says it all.
Yeah.
You don't have to say more, you don't have to say anything less. And I think that they should be able to like listen to women, like listen to women who are literally like in your face and telling you like all of this. And just don't sit here and be like, on social media, like post all this stuff like, oh my god, like I believe women and I support women, but then when women go and talk to you about something, it's like one goes in through one ear, comes out the other. And it's like so like that, like, and I think a lot of it is just like wanting to people always wanting to still be friends with certain people because, oh, I've known them for a long time.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't believe in anything you don't believe, maybe they're not your friend, like maybe they're not your friend, and that's okay. And I think for men specifically, like they just see everything like their way. The big patriarchy, big misogyny, like they do not see anything like their way. And it's like, look at things through a woman's perspective. Look at how women are literally sexualized in schools. Look at how black and brown girls are literally pushed out of schools more than they are black men. Like think about those things. Um, Look how much like black trans women are being killed on a day-to-day basis. Like look at these things and it's just like learn, actually sit here and try to, because and I think for me it's so hard because there's so many resources out there. We have access to the internet, like, you know, Google stuff,
Yeah.
watch documentaries, listen to a podcast, read books. Like there's so many books out there. Like you can literally read so many black authors. Like you have all these things and still choose to do nothing with it. But then I'm supposed to sit here and believe you when you say you believe women. But do you really? Like,
Yeah.
do you actually believe women? So like that. I just think men are just like, I'm confused. Like y'all just confuse me. Like, or when they act like, which is like a whole
Right.
other big thing when it comes to like a whole like I'm just and I think like even with men and like the Black Lives Matter movement and how they had to like make a whole separate organization for Black women and femmes and girls, the Say Her Name movement, there was two very different movements specifically because the only people who were being acknowledged in the Black Lives Matter movement were men, when women are being killed just as much as men. So it's just like these things that people don't like pay attention to and don't acknowledge. Like we're like even when last year for the June protest and we were constantly hearing like George Floyd, but what about Breonna Taylor?
Brianna.
Um so like also that. And it's just like I like men just I don't like what is like what are you okay? Like I don't know. It's just like so many things that I just feel like you have and you have to have women in your life, like your mom, like you have to have women who have experienced so many things living here and being in this world that like how you gonna go sit there and just ignore women like their opinion and what they say is not valid or wanting to constantly argue about certain things and it's just like it's so like you're so misogynist and so like like I was just like come on like you should like know better. But then it's also like, oh, I don't have privilege. I'm a Black man. And it's like, yeah, you're a man. Look at the privilege right there. Like, you know. So I think that's how I feel about men. And then like white white allies, I think definitely for them, use your privilege. The same way I'm telling men to use your privilege, use your privilege. Like to get involved, like obviously like do research, but you don't have to be a savior. That's also something that like, we don't need no white saviors. I hate to break it to you, yeah, I do not need no white savior. And we don't need white saviors. So like obviously like find something that you feel like I would say the most passionate about, but something that you mostly care about. And also like talk to people who maybe identify as this and being like, oh, so like how can I help? How can I move forward? How can I use my privilege to like be an ally? And an ally can be like somebody at a protest, like a white person inside of a Black person when there's cops. Like that's an ally. That's more than an ally because you're literally like putting you're protecting me with your body. And I think I feel like a lot of the time like white allies want to turn into white saviors, and it's like we don't need white saviors. So I think use your privilege, but also we don't have to you don't have to be the one speaking for all of us all the time. Like you can I believe that like white people should be invited into spaces and like you know you're more than welcome to come. You don't necessarily have to come. But if we're talking about Black and brown issues, you don't need to be talking. You can listen, you don't need to be talking because your experience and our experience is very, very different. So, and I think like acknowledging your privilege and using it, but also knowing when to step back. Like, all right, like it's not my turn to speak. It's not my turn to do anything. Like, let me just sit here, but taking everything that everyone else is saying. So that's how I feel about like white allies. Cause we don't need no saviors. We don't need no saviors. This white savior complex.
We definitely don't. I want to know as a check-in, because it's important when you're an organizer to prioritize yourself as well, how you balance your work, your personal life, your personal life and your activism, and how you take care of yourself.
I'm really bad at this. I'm really, really bad at this. But at some point, I remember like my job is very much we do like check-ins all the time. We're always talking about like how we feel. So I think for me, like now that's definitely one of the ways that I like be like, okay, so what's been going on throughout the week? But I know that for me, like balancing it out, like sometimes like as an activist there's so much work that needs to be done and like so much organizing and so much things that you can participate in. You don't have to be in everything, and just because you missed out on one thing doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, I'm a bad activist or I'm a bad organizer or like I missed out on this. And sometimes it's just like you're gonna burn out.
Yeah.
You don't take care of yourself, you're gonna burn out. And it's like, so who's gonna light you up? Because no one is. Like if you're not out here taking care of yourself, who's gonna take care of you? And I think for me, like sometimes I have to step back and be like, okay, like I can't solve all the world issues right now. I can't, like it's just literally impossible. So like stepping back and being like, okay, I need to breathe. I don't, or like at my job, because we're alumni and they know like we're college students, they always tell us like let us know if you can't come. Like we get it. Like you don't. It could be the day of. Um, and like for me, I binge watch a lot of shows. Um, and I definitely watch a lot of shows from my childhood to remind me of like what that felt like to like be young. And be like, oh
Mm.
God, like you feel like there's no problems in the world and there's
I
just no
have peeped. We do share an HBO account.
like you see, like
Yeah.
I literally like I'm watching The Nanny right now. Like I just
Me too. Yeah.
young, like I feel like oh my God. So like that, I definitely do that. I try to journal sometimes, and I tried like journaling helped me a lot during the summertime. Like I did that a lot, like every single day, like reflecting at night and being like, okay, so what happened today? Like how do I feel? I also I'm in therapy. Like I feel like people, if you have access to a therapist, get a therapist. Like there's nothing wrong with having a therapist and having someone to talk to when you need it at all times. Um, and school and just like it's so weird because I try not to be like, oh, school and activism are the same thing, but they just feel the same. Like they just feel like, even when you try to put activism aside, it just comes up in school all the time.
Mm.
Especially as a sociology major, you're just always seeing so many things, and you're just like, damn, like this is just happening all over again. Like it just doesn't go away.
Yeah.
I think like people really need to genuinely take care of themselves. Like take, I say take all the mental health breaks you need because I see with y'all little wellness days, we not doing nothing with that. I hate to break it to y'all. Them wellness days is not helping nobody. If I got work, it's just
Useless.
like, come on, work with me here. So I think that that's something that I do. Listening to music, music, like people, where would I be without music? Music is such a coping mechanism for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I started painting recently, which has been fun. But I think like now I have not done any painting because I've been so like focused on school. I've
Me
also been
too.
off social media, which has been very, very helpful. I think social media breaks are very, very helpful when you just be like, all right, like I've seen a lot. Especially like June of last year, like there was just
Mm.
going on.
That's enough. That's enough. I did the same thing.
There's just a lot going on, and you're just like, all right, like this is a lot for me right now. And it's okay to step back and like check up on your friends. And I think people think that, oh, you're not posting or you're not doing this on social media. That doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything. Like social media does not define whether you're an activism or an organizer. Like it does not.
Mm.
um so I think that, and I feel like as young people and like young activists and organizers, like social media breaks are so important. Like they're so important. Like you're literally gonna see so many things that you don't want to see, and you're just like, why am I here? um
Mm.
but like taking breathers, taking days off, and just like, yo, relax, like relax. Like it's okay to take care of yourself and relax and to go out and just, even spend money. Like it's literally okay for you to just be like calm and chill and don't have to worry about nothing. Like the work will get done eventually. It will get done eventually.
Yeah.
There is school or like activist work, it's gonna get done eventually. So you don't need to like pressure yourself all the time because you're gonna burn out and you don't want to burn out. Why would like
Mm-hmm.
light you up when you burn out if it ain't you?
Exactly. Especially for BIPOC. Like, we don't need to only survive, we also need to experience pleasure and prioritize our own happiness because that's just as important to what our needs to eat, to sleep, to breathe, also to feel joy and be in community with each other.
Because the world is gonna be on fire every day. Like it's gonna be on every single day. So it's like you can't be out here trying to put out the fire, but you can't be trying to put out the fire every day. You gotta like pass it to somebody else one day. It's not always gonna be you. And like you said, we do deserve to be happy. I'm telling you, I'm not trying to survive in this lifetime. I'm not
Yeah.
live like I live. So do whatever makes you happy, whether that means buying clothes, reading a book, binge watching shows, whatever.
Watching The Nanny, yeah.
Nanny is so good. She's so good.
It hits so different when you're in your 20s. So much better, so much better. But yeah, what do you hope your legacy will be at Ithaca College?
I really hope my legacy is definitely like just, I would say just do whatever your heart like desires. And I feel like I say that from being somebody who started my first semester of college hating Ithaca and not wanting to be there at all, and like just being like, I hate this school, I need to leave. To like the end of my semester, and like doing honoring Blackness that I see, and like finding people and doing things that like I want people to be able to be like, okay, like just because you're a very quiet person doesn't necessarily mean you can't do anything. And I want people to be able to be like, okay, like I could do this. I could do this. Like I would remember being a first year and I was like, okay, like I want to be president for that. Like, why not? Like I want to do this. And I was so scared because I was like, why would I, like, for what? And then I was like, okay, like let's just do it. And I did it and I got it. And it's just like, I just want my legacy to be like, the world is always gonna be on fire. The world's always gonna be on fire. So just do whatever you want. Do it in like the most safest, most happiest way that you can. And take care of yourself while you're doing this. While you're trying to set out these fires, take care of yourself. Because at the end of the day, like you really only got you and other Black and brown kids. Like there's just always gonna be us. And I want people to understand that like when it comes to like, I think also when it comes to like academics and stuff, that doesn't define you. Like people need to understand that your GPA does not define you, your grades don't define you, none of that defines you. This all feels like we're living in like a myth. Like this just all feels fake. But to just live, like I think stop trying to survive and live. Like literally stop trying to survive and just live, because like I want people to remember that. Because we deserve to live. We deserve happiness, we deserve joy, we deserve it all. And if we out here always on a non-stop thing trying to survive, we never gonna get to live.
Exactly that. Thank you so much, Gisela. All that really, I feel very like connected back into myself and my power from just hearing those words. And that's pretty much all I have for today, unless there's anything that you want to add, anything that like I might have missed that you'd like to like touch on.
I don't know. I just think that being overall an activist and organizer, I think it's a lot of work. But I think once you find what you feel is important to you and what you care about the most, what you feel most passionate, like it'll come so easy. And there's gonna be times where you hate the world and you're gonna be angry and you're gonna be like, damn, like fuck this. Like I don't want to be here. Like this is actually crazy. You find like little joy moments and happiness in between like those angry moments. You're like, damn, but like we've done this and we've got here and we've accomplished this and I have all these people who support me and have my back. And I think like anybody could be an activist and organizer. Like you just got to do the work. Like you need people who care to be about all this work. And it's exhausting. So I give props to people who be on the outside and just don't want to be on the inside and they support from a distance. But I just think that this is crazy. Like the world we live in is just crazy. But overall, to just take care of yourself in any way, shape, or form that you need to, if you're gonna start trying to get yourself involved in being an activist or organizer. Thank you for
Thank you
having me.
so much, Gisela. Thank you for spending this time with us today, for your words, for your insight. And for everyone else, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Facebook. I think that's it. SoundCloud. We have like a SoundCloud. We have a new podcast out on Spotify, Center for Ideas on everything. Thank you so much for being with us today and have a great rest of your week.